but he gets charged. I got to find out this guy's name and number, and I'm going to hold a fundraiser for lawyer fees for him. He should get a medal for standing up. It's like down in the U.S., we should have the castle law.
I don't know what it is. I just have this feeling in my gut, based on what the heck has been going on in this country, that this Liberal government may fall a lot sooner than we thought. Doug Ford has finally admitted that he made a pretty big mistake by supporting Mark Carney in this federal election, and honestly shocked, and I do mean shocked, everybody who was listening. That also goes for this Liberal MP, who you are very, very familiar with, that has sided with the Conservatives and spoken out against Mark Carney. Yeah, that just happened. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below, and share this video to anybody who needs to know what the mainstream media is not telling you this week.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Zimmer.
Mr. Jenis.
Nays pour, 172, 172. Nays contre, 165, 165.
I declare the motion carried.
This Liberal government under Mark Carney is not doing good at all. And it's no surprise, because they have terrible ideas and all they want is more control. They want more overreach, and they just really want to ruin your life to completely destabilize the country so that you're easier to control. I mean, why else would they push for mass, uncontrolled, unvetted, and unsustainable immigration on top of all of the other horrible ideas that they have if it weren't for that one sole purpose? But I digress. So Michael Barrett had put forth a conservative motion to give a lifetime ban to GC Strategies. You know, the people behind the ArriveCan app who stole $64 million for work that they never did. And oh yeah, we're going to ban the Liberals. The best they could do is just, you're not allowed to work for us for 7 years. That's not justice at all. That's getting away with it. Not to mention, in theory, you could just change your business name and still have the same people operating there and still receive government procurement contracts. The motion also included that the $64 million of your hard-earned money that the government just freely gave away to them, because it's not their money, they don't care, right? They're helping out their friends, would have to be repaid. And shockingly, the motion passed. And there is something very dark about the voting results here that we will dive into. But first, here is Michael Barrett on the immense success of this.
So this motion just came before the House. And Conservatives, of course, we voted for our motion. And then the Bloc Québécois voted for the motion. And guess what? So did the NDP, who've been supporting the Liberals for the last 10 years. But Mark Carney's so-called new Liberal government, they voted against getting taxpayers their money back.
And under Justin Trudeau, they also voted against ever even having the Auditor General investigate this case, when there were many, many alarm bells ringing about what the heck was going on with $64 million that was given to this company that made absolutely no sense. And, you know, here's the voting results here. As you can see on screen, the Liberals literally all voted against it. Some new government, I tell ya. About safety and security. They're so very new. Oh my goodness, all of them. But here's the thing. Let's hypothesize why the Liberal government would have voted against this. Number one, GC Strategies may very well be unbelievably politically connected in ways that we as the general public will likely never know. It's very possible they have deep ties to Liberal insiders, donors, and even some campaign operatives, which is why they received this contract in the first place. And banning the company for life would open a can of worms for the Liberal government, forcing scrutiny on who approved the payments, who benefited, why the hell there's no paper trail. So in other words, they're just protecting their own. It's also very possible that the Liberal government is trying to avoid setting a precedent, because if they had voted in favor of without resistance, that would then open the door to investigations into other shady contracts. Think We Charity, think McKinsey, think Green Slush Fund. And so to vote in favor of it, even if there are some Liberals, especially backbenchers, who think, yeah, that was the right thing to do. That's why they entered politics, was to try to stop this corruption, this lying from happening. You would really, really get into a nightmare of a situation where the federal government would have to prove value or risk having the money get clawed back, risk damaging those relationships, and risk upsetting the people who get those contracts for a very particular reason. And most importantly, I would say that recovering the money, had they voted in favor of this, could reveal some pretty embarrassing revelations about who authorized the contracts, where the funds went, how they met these people, all of the above, and, you know, if any of it happen to land back in liberal-friendly pockets, right? So, of course, they would vote against this because they're protecting themselves, their friends, and likely their secrets. But here is probably the most damning revelation, one that we already knew, us on the right side of history, and one that maybe some people on the left will start to come around to, and that is the simple fact that every other party voted in favor of actual accountability and true justice, including the NDP. And the Liberal Party voted against that. Very new, right? Super, super new. So just remember that that is not leadership. That's not accountability. That's not something new. That's called a cover-up, which is actually the precedent that the Liberal Party has had, as far as I can tell.
But it doesn't matter, because Mark Carney doesn't have a majority. And the majority of democratically elected members of the House of Commons has given the Liberals, by order of the House of Commons, 100 days to get taxpayers their money back.
But there is one little piece of taxpayer dollars, which, wow, if you follow those money trails, it's so bizarre how they just stop in the middle somewhere. Nonetheless, though, Mark Carney made a pretty unsurprising announcement yesterday at the G7.
The second is we are providing additional military assistance, drones, helicopters, broader munitions, over $2 billion worth of assistance directly to Ukraine. And thirdly, we are dispersing the next tranche of the loan based on the frozen Russian assets, over $2 billion as well. This is our contribution. We'll be working with our European and other allies for their contributions to provide the support. And to be absolutely clear, the support will be unwavering.
Carney had also announced a series of new sanctions to a bunch of individuals as well as entities. And those to me are all just a complete laughable distraction that make absolutely no sense. Sounds really strong, but what on earth is the real world impact? Let's be real. Russia has survived a lot worse than that. And there's also little proof. And by little, I mean essentially zero proof that Canada's sanctions do anything at all other than make headlines. So in total, Mark Carney committed $2 billion in military aid to Ukraine, which is interesting if you consider the state of our military, and also a $2.3 billion loan that I'm sure we will never ever get back for infrastructure. They say that a lot of this is to be repaid using interest from frozen Russian assets in Europe. This is essentially, it's not a measured strategy at all. This is a $4.3 billion PR move, which I would surmise is probably why Zelensky was even at the G7 to begin with, to make sure that it's top of mind as per usual. And the loan itself is really built on an absolute fantasy, because to claim that Ukraine is going to repay $2.3 billion using interest from frozen Russian assets of which Europe controls, that is just, that's laughable. Like, that is actually embarrassingly laughable, because Canada can absolutely not even remotely guarantee that money. So if Ukraine defaults, well, then I guess taxpayers just have to eat that loss. So here we are with a little bit more economic theater coming out of Mark Carney, obviously.
Also, when dealing with Russia, we are stronger. I think what we have seen is that...
No, you're just making Russia richer. Well, you're not dealing with Russia, you're making Russia richer.
So I think that even during the Cold War, NATO allies were trading with Russia. Then there have been disagreements about what kind of trade arrangements we should go into.
I think trade is wonderful. I think energy is a whole different story. I think energy is a much different story than normal trade. And you have a country like Poland that won't accept the gas. You take a look at some of the countries, they won't accept it because they don't want to be captive to Russia. But Germany, as far as I'm concerned, is captive to Russia because it's getting so much of its energy from Russia. So we're supposed to protect Germany, but they're getting their energy from Russia. explain that. And it can't be explained, you know.
It's also important to note that Donald Trump had left early. He had also, again, made some comments about Canada-U.S. relations. Here's a listen to those.
And you said a lot about acquiring Canada as a state. Did anybody talk to you about that? And where are you now?
It's been a deal from Canada, but it's up to them. They're going to have to pay a lot of tariffs and things. They're going to have to pay a lot of money for the dome, for the Iron Dome. They want to be a part of it. So we may make a separate deal on that, by the way.
In case you had some trouble understanding there, Donald Trump essentially just reiterated again that, hey, the dome is going to be totally free if you guys become a 51st state, and you're going to have to pay. It'd be a way better deal for you. So elbows up, everybody. But don't worry, because according to Melanie, Joly, we are so done with the United States, actually, and we're going to be closer to Europe. I have a lot of opinions on this one, but let's listen to what she has to say.
And we know we're living in much more uncertain times, in a dangerous world. We know that also when it comes to our own reality on the trade side and on the security side, we've been over-reliant on the US. And so therefore, we want to become closer to Europe, closer to our European partners and some key Asian partners as well. And so we are the most European of all non-European countries. That's why it was important to be here at the Paris Air Show, which is the most important forum for the aerospace sector at a time where there's so many decisions and investment made in the sector.
Firstly, you're at the Paris Air Show on a taxpayer-funded trip to Paris for what? What? Make that one make logistic sense, economic sense. I think you just wanted to go to Paris, my girl. And number two, I'm just so curious, why are we more dependent on the United States? Could that be because there was no business case for LNG, of which they just promised, I think it was about $2 trillion to the United States when they opened up that way? Could it be because of the tanker ban? Could it be perhaps because of the no new pipelines bill? I don't know. I don't know why it is. That's so crazy. Yeah, Melanie, Joly. I don't know who did that to us because it totally was not you. I've also had the fortune of going to Europe several times. Can confirm Canada is so flippin' far from the most European, non-European nation. We're actually incredibly close to the United States, though. But why on earth would the Trudeau and Carney government want us to distance ourselves from our closest trading partner, our next door neighbor that many other countries would just die to be that close to in terms of trade and prosperity and protection and all of the amazing things, given the status of the United States on a global scale? Could be because the globalists hate America, especially under Donald Trump, at least culturally and politically at the very least. They have spent many years, posturing as being morally superior to the United States. Oh, Trump's so bad and terrible. Oh, America's so bad for being so competitive and successful. That's just terrible. And I think they also just hate the idea, the fact, the truth that Canada's success is so largely tied to the United States and their own economic stability. And so what is the plan here? Really, so you're wanting to run to failing economies who wish they could be as close to the United States as we are, and then pretend that you're diversifying? Yeah, I don't buy that one bit. Let's also not forget that Europe is truly a model. Many countries in Europe are the model of global technocracy and the dream that is, of which Mark Carney wrote an entire book about that I've read twice: Centralized Power, Climate Mandates, Digital Control. You can take a look at how Germany and the UK are doing right now. That is the club that Mark Carney and Freeland want to be in, so much deeper than they currently are. Border control, all these things, monetary policy, sovereign energy. My gosh, no way. I think what they actually want is for Canada to look like Brussels, but minus the riots for now, as we do know that Mark Carney is a great fan of riots, especially when they're climate ones or those protesting the United States.
One of the highlights, I think, of my time in public service was the Hamburg summit, not because of the riots, which were fantastic, I have to say. They were like some of the best riots I've seen at a G20.
I also think more than anything, though, at the end of the day, this isn't about trade. This isn't about the U.S. being bad. This is actually about the government having an excuse, of which they created, in order to get public approval and support to pivot from U.S. trade and to pivot towards climate policy, which those other global nations, globalist nations, have also done. Because guess what? When you go and look at the WEF website, among others, they're all involved. So they're all in this together. And it's not for the betterment of society. It's for the betterment of their own lobbyists and their own pocketbooks and their investments. The Canadian government knows the situation, and that situation is we're definitely going to have to step up our game. We're going to have to be more like the United States if we want to survive. They don't want to do that due to their ideology. And for them to be able to say, look at this deal we signed with Asia. We don't know which Asian countries, though. China, that's likely. And they can say, because it would appear to look good on paper, I suppose, look at all these great trade deals we made in Asia. Whoa, look at all these deals we made in the EU. Look, we're doing something, when they aren't, because the reality is that approximately 75% of all of our exports go to the United States. That will likely go unchanged. And it doesn't matter how many air shows in Paris Melanie Joly goes to on taxpayer dollars. It doesn't matter how many trips the Trudeau government took to the EU to discuss trade with other leaders. It doesn't matter how deeply connected Mark Carney is with those same people. At the end of the day, roughly 7% of all of our exports go to those regions. And also, most of those trade deals are pretty well meaningless when the receiving country is in utter chaos, recession. They're being overthrown by mass immigration and riots. Doesn't really mean a whole lot, does it? But CBC doesn't show you that now, do they? I was quite surprised, I will say, that Nathaniel Erskine Smith actually put his foot down in a way that, we'll see if he's in Mark Carney's cabinet for much longer, because, wow, this was a shocking statement.
First, we should welcome greater parliamentary and civil society scrutiny. The government's proposed guillotine motion seeks to limit parliamentary debate at every stage of the bill. More concerning, it will jam all expert and public testimony and all committee scrutiny in less than 2 days. For what? Consider that Parliament isn't currently scheduled to sit between June 20th and September 15th. We are rushing legislation through Parliament under the auspices of an urgent threat, but we aren't willing to put Parliament to work for what, an additional week to get things right? The debate on amendments does not need to be rushed. We could easily extend committee hearings by an additional week, provide resources for the committee to sit every day, and engage in a more thoughtful process to hear from experts, improve the bill, and pass it through the House by Canada Day.
That was in relation to Bill C-5, which has been met with a lot of controversy over the unprecedented powers, lack of consultation, among many other things, that it would give the Liberal government and their cabinet. That totally violates existing laws that we have. We talked about that a lot in yesterday's episode, but nonetheless, I am truly shocked by those comments. I think they're right. Give credit where credit is due. Thank you for standing up and saying that against your own. I have a feeling that's not going to be a very fun conversation for him going forward with other people in the party. But what he says is completely true. And as I have often said, it's not about right or left. It's about right or wrong. Period. And speaking of that, by the way, Doug Ford also really went off in a way that I think my jaw hit the floor. Take a listen to this. And this came after Doug Ford himself was targeted by the same laws and release of criminals that he, by all accounts, absolutely supported, based on his support for Mark Carney repeatedly throughout the election, based on Corey Tenike, his campaign manager, and the things that they were saying on all the mainstream outlets. I'm sorry, buddy, but this is why you vote Conservative.
Did you hear about the guy that these thugs came up, ready to steal his car? They're all in their masks and everything. So I guess he was a hunter or something. He shot up in the air. I don't recommend that, by the way. But he gets charged. I got to find out this guy's name and number and I'm going to hold a fundraiser for lawyer fees for him. He should get a medal for standing up. It's like down in the U.S., we should have the castle law. Someone breaks into your house, and I know any of these people here, someone breaks into your house and they're coming after your kids and you're coming after your spouse, you're going to fight like you've never fought before. You're going to use anything that you have, be it weapons, baseball bats, knives. You're protecting your family. These thugs shouldn't be coming in there.
Mass immigration, yep. That mass immigration, most of it completely unvetted, by the way, who then goes and commits some of the worst crimes, not just in Canada, but in other countries as well, where they've followed the same playbook. Yep, we got that too. And then worst of all, no consequences. I wonder what that would do to somebody who is committing offenses. You just get bail. There's no issues at all. You can do whatever the hell you want because there is a two-tier justice system. All those same things. Yep, you utilize that to destabilize your population, which, as I said in the beginning of this video, makes them a lot easier to control, doesn't it? Sucks, though, when it targets you. It's one of those things, and why I believe there's so many high-up officials that have these horrendous laws, because they live in places where they don't actually have to deal with this stuff. Nope, they certainly do not. So they know it's bad. They hear your stories. They don't actually care. They don't have to deal with it. But when they do have to deal with it, boy, does that tune ever change its tone.
And guess what, guys? These weak-kneed judges, the biggest bust in Peel's history, guess where they are? They're back out on the street again. Bail. Except one person. Do you believe that? And judges, slap on the wrist. Okay, little Johnny, you go out there and deal more drugs. Why don't you give them more drugs? It's crazy. The system is broken. I will be all over the Prime Minister and the federal government have bail reform until these, I don't even want to call them what I'm thinking right now. I better hold off. But these people that are terrorizing our neighborhoods and feeding drugs to our people, that's number one. They need to change the criminal code. They need to change bail reform. I will be all over him until this gets done. Stop the dilly-dallying around. 10 years we've seen, we're going to do it, we aren't going to do it. Prime Minister gave me his word, he's going to change it. It has to be done. But guess what, folks? Those nice, kind judges, they let them all out on bail. Oh, by the way, they're already out on bail or probation. What is the city coming to, not the city, but our country coming to, when these criminals are running amok and terrorizing our neighborhoods? It's disgusting. Something has to change.
I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with you tomorrow, but be sure that you subscribe, like, comment your thoughts down below. I can imagine I will have a pleasure reading through them and responding to as many as I can once this video is uploaded. And of course, share the video as well. That helps an awful lot in spreading the message and hopefully getting our gosh darn country back.